This week on TechRap, is it iTime for the iWatch? Xiaomi unveils its next flagship smartphone, the Mi 4, and a new $13 fitness band. And it's third time the charm for Sony. We review the Sony Xperia Z2 smartphone. Hi, I'm Michael Josh, and this is TechRap. Before we start the show, we're pleased to announce that we've been nominated for a TAT Award this year. 50% of the vote is in your hands, and we'd love it if you could take some time out to vote for us. We'll put the direct URL in the show notes, or you can look for the Best Tech Blog category at the TATAwards2014.com website. To vote, click Vote next to TechRap. You'll then be prompted to log in via Facebook or Twitter. Do that. You'll be redirected back to the voting page. Then click Vote again. You'll notice the button change from Vote to a grayed out Voted. You can vote once per hour until August 3rd. Now on to the news. It's earnings report week for Microsoft and Apple. Microsoft boasts of improved revenues, but net income is slightly lower, $4.6 billion, down from $4.97 billion in the fourth quarter of 2013. Other bits and pieces that came out of the earnings call: Microsoft confirms it did work on the rumored Surface Mini, but that it decided to pull out the device right before its scheduled launch. Only the 12-inch Surface 3 was announced last May, despite several leaks that a small version was also readied. The biggest news from Microsoft, however, is confirmation that Microsoft is working on consolidating its smartphone, tablet, and PC operating systems into one platform. TechRap reported on this a few months back. Universal apps will run on all devices, adapting to the screen size of the device. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella says, unlike its fragmented past, now only one team works on one common architecture for one single version of Windows. What a relief. He says, quote, "We will streamline the next version of Windows from 3 operating systems into one single converged operating system for screens of all sizes." Apple's profits, on the other hand, are up $7.75 billion versus $6.9 billion this period a year ago, driven by strong iPhone sales. 35.2 million iPhones were sold in the last quarter, up by 12%. Speaking of Apple, will we finally see the iWatch this year? If this patent filing is any indication, we may see Apple dive into the wearable market soon. Apple Insider reports Apple was granted a patent for a wrist-worn device that has the ability to communicate with other devices. The patent, filed way back in 2011, is labeled iTime, although Apple can change the name of the device if it's announced. Also noted on the patent is how the device will not necessarily rely on fingers to be operated. Instead, users will use gestures and physical movements like bouncing, shaking, and tapping to control the device. Microsoft introduces the Lumia 530, the most affordable Lumia and the first phone to come out since it acquired Nokia. At €85 or around $114, it's the cheapest Lumia phone to date, and is Microsoft's attempt at capturing the emerging market. The Lumia 530 will come in single SIM and dual SIM variants and will be available on August 2014. Now to become the world's third largest smartphone manufacturer this year, Chinese up-and-comer Xiaomi launches a new flagship smartphone and a fitness band at an event in Beijing this week, but not without a bit of controversy. The company, which has been quick to ward off comparisons to Apple, is again being questioned about similarities to Apple products. Earlier this year, it released the Mi Pad. That's the same size as the iPad mini, but with colored shells reminiscent of the iPhone 5C. Its newly announced flagship smartphone, the Mi 4, meanwhile borrows some design elements of the iPhone 5, including a chamfered-edged metal band. The comparisons are unfortunate. If its predecessor, the Mi 3, is any indication, then the Mi 4 is going to be a spectacular smartphone with a price tag that's tough to beat. The 5-inch phone runs off a 2.5 GHz quad-core Snapdragon 801 processor, 3 GB of RAM, and at least 16 gigabytes of storage and an improved 8 and 13 megapixel cameras. The phone will retail for about $320 or roughly 14,000 pesos. It will be available for pre-order in China on July 29. The company also announces MIUI version 6, the company's custom implementation of Android, and one of our favorites thus far. That's coming in August. Finally, Xiaomi also introduces the Mi Band, a fitness tracker that also works as a personal ID device that unlocks your phone when you are in close proximity of it. Global availability for the Mi Band was unannounced, but let's hope it ships outside of China too. Unlike the $100 bands in the market today, the Mi Band has a 79 renminbi price tag, which converts to about 13 US dollars. In hopes that it can breathe new life into the company, BlackBerry is casting its bets on a new strategy and a new line of smartphones. First off is the Z3, a competitively priced 5-inch smartphone first launched in Indonesia last May. The phone is officially launched in the Philippines this week and retails for 10,990 pesos. The Z3 runs the latest version of BlackBerry 10 OS, version 10.2.1. That, among its new features, is a more straightforward way of downloading and installing Android apps. China's team Newbie wins the International 4, a Dota 2 tournament. Chinese teams Newbie and Vinci Gaming squared off in the best-of-5 series finals match, the multiplayer online game Defense of the Ancients, or Dota. Newbie came back from a first-game loss and won 3 straight games to win the championship and the $5 million grand prize. The 4th edition of Valve Corporation's international tournament created buzz long before the game started after it raised a record-breaking $10.8 million total prize pool. Sony's flagship smartphone, the Xperia Z, has been through 3 iterations, and mostly, at least on the outside, the changes have been minimal. But with each version, the phone gets more and more refined. Like its predecessors, the Z2 is a stunning piece of art, with glass front and back panels and a metal band that's cut from a single piece of aluminum. The Xperia is one of the first waterproof smartphone flagships from any manufacturer. Waterproofing is always posed one of the biggest design challenges. How do you keep the ports sealed while keeping the phone looking beautiful? On the Z2, Sony has reduced the number of port covers to 2, one on each side of the phone. One for the micro SD card, which supports up to 128 gigabytes of extra space, and the other on the left for the micro USB port and SIM card tray. The port covers feel like aluminum and snap closed tightly, solving problems with the initial design that had port covers that didn't always shut all the way. Everything else around the band is well thought out. 3 holes are bored into the bottom for stereo microphones. On the lower left, a larger hole for an optional lanyard, which is definitely a great idea, especially for a slippery smartphone like this one. On top, another microphone and a water-resistant headphone jack. All buttons are on the right-hand side of the phone. Sony's iconic power button, a volume rocker, and a dedicated camera button, which also serves as a quick key for launching the camera app. The only sore point in the design, and I've said this on many Xperia reviews in the past, is the exposed contact points for the optional charging dock. A charging dock is a great idea so you don't have to keep opening the port covers and potentially get them loose, but otherwise it looks unfinished. Sony gets extra points for positioning stereo speakers on the front of the device, where smartphone speakers should be. 2 speakers are tucked under the bezel on the top and the bottom of the display. The top speaker also doubles as a notification light, changing colors depending on the notification. The biggest update to the Z2 is its larger display, up to 5.2 inches from the 5-inch Z1. Sony has managed to keep the dimensions pretty much intact by reducing bezel size, but the phone is slightly taller than its predecessor. The new IPS screen is better than ever. Colors have enough punch without it being oversaturated, although color accuracy on the display is a bit off by default. This can be changed by digging into display settings and adjusting the white balance. Unfortunately, the display suffers in bright light. My biggest issue about the display and its glass back is how it easily picks up smudges. If you live in a tropical climate like I do, then chances are your phone will always be smudgy. Imaging is an area where Sony should dominate. A lot of smartphones today have imaging sensors actually built by Sony, and I'm a big fan of their Alpha series cameras. From a spec sheet standpoint, the Xperia Z2 has a lot going for it. 20.7 megapixels, a 1/2.3-inch Exmor imaging sensor, and Bion's processing engine. The photos are very good, but the colors aren't always great. Here are some of the shots we took using the device. Side by side with some of the shots taken using a Galaxy S5, you'll notice how in most instances, the colors on the Samsung were ever so slightly more accurate. The camera focused quickly and accurately though. Like all of Sony's CyberShot cameras, the Z2 includes Superior Auto Mode, which detects the scene and automatically picks the optimal setting for you. I also like Manual Mode. While it doesn't give you full manual controls, it does give me exposure compensation and white balance, settings that I use a lot. The front-facing camera, on the other hand, could benefit from a much wider lens. 2.5s are a bit tough to shoot unless you have your hands extended all the way. But the phone does great as an underwater camera, thanks to the dedicated camera button. A long press launches the camera app. It is also your trigger for shooting photos underwater. Now let's go to software. There's not much to talk about here. Props to Sony for a well-implemented version of Android. The Z2 runs the latest version of KitKat and is one of the least intrusive implementations of the OS. There is hardly any bloatware installed on the phone unless you consider the Sony-branded apps for music and photos. The look and feel of the OS hasn't changed though since the original Xperia Z. There aren't too many built-in software features too, except for Stamina Mode, which extends battery life, but that's been around since version 1 as well, and is nothing like Ultra Power Saving Mode in the S5. Okay, enough nitpicking. The Xperia Z2 is a great smartphone, one of the best Android smartphones in the market today. Specs-wise, it's up there with the best flagships, a 2.3 GHz quad-core Snapdragon 801 processor, 3 GB of RAM, and a powerful 3200 mAh battery that lasts a good 8 to 10 hours with normal use. Let's go over the pros and cons. Let's start with pros. Impeccable design. Number 2, best-in-class water resistance. 3, a reliable camera that takes excellent photos. And 4, really good battery life. What about the cons? I have a problem with the ergonomics. I feel it's a bit too boxy. Number 2, it's fragile. You probably want a case if you don't want to scratch up this glass back. And last, the lack of software customization options. All that said, if you're looking for a great waterproof phone, then you'll be happy with the Xperia Z2 from Sony. And that was TechRap. For the latest tech news, visit Rappler.com/technology. Follow Rappler on social media, join our conversation online, and send us emails. All the details are below. That's all for this week, folks. I'm Michael Josh. Thanks for dropping by.